Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video on the internet about how to make money on the internet. 2025 is upon us and you want to get rich, you want to start that side hustle, or you want to go all in on starting your business. And you should. It's literally never been easier to start a business and start making money. But the question is, what is the best business to start? The guy on TikTok says that you should start a TikTok shop. The dude in the ad before this video says that Amazon FBA is the best way to make money online. And you heard that your second cousin bought a Lambo from doing SMMA. So who is full of shit and who is legit? Well, they all are legit, kind of. The reality is you can make money and be successful with all of those business models. However, the better question is, what is the best business model to choose if you are new to business? And that is the point of this video. I'm going to be breaking down the best business models from my very biased and subjective perspective and rank them in order of what I perceive to be the best business to choose if you're new and starting your first business. We're going to be considering profitability, ease of operation, and cost to start. And finally, if you're wondering why the fuck you should be listening to me, well, first off, fair enough, that makes sense. But second off, I have a software company that is growing 20% month on month, and I have a creator business that generates over $100,000 a month. So I found out what works and I've applied it. All right, first up, I want to talk about SaaS, which stands for Software as a Service. And this is probably one of the most trendy business models these days. And not to mention, I feel like it's one of the first business models that people think they want to start. They want to come up with this app idea. They want to create some new version of Facebook, or they want to get into AI, which is obviously very trendy as well. Not realizing what it actually takes to make one of those business models actually work and profitable. Now, on one hand, this is one of the most scalable business models. How SaaS works in a nutshell is that you build an app or a software tool that people use and they pay monthly for, or you build it to use for free and you get advertisers to pay for ad placements on that platform. Now, keep in mind that is an extremely generalized explanation. There's lots of different ways you can actually monetize a SaaS company, but that's basically how you do it. Not to mention, this is one of the business models that you have the highest potential to get rich as fuck. Think of Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. They all made their money from some version of a software company. With that said, it's important to know that SaaS has a very high barrier to entry. You either one, have to be a technical founder, i.e. you need to know how to code or build software, or two, you have to hire a team of developers and fund the build. Not to mention, you have to pay that team on an ongoing basis even before you're making money or have customers. So unless you have a trust fund or you're already making bank, I do not suggest this as your first business, especially if you're looking to make money right away. For example, I have a SaaS company called MemberUp, and as of right now, I've personally invested over $300,000 and 2 years of work in that business, and I have personally made $0. Now, you might be asking yourself, why the fuck would you do that? And here's why. In terms of business models that have the highest potential for making a boatload of money, SaaS is most definitely a S tier. Once you build it, it has the potential to scale and be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, or dare I say, billions of dollars.
Billion?
However, if you're just starting your first business and your goal is to get out of working a 9-to-5, more specifically earned income, SaaS is not it. And to explain more about this, I actually made a video explaining the exact path that I'm following and the difference between a cash flow business and a growth business, and that breaks down much more about the difference here. Now, let's rank SaaS. In terms of profitability, in the long run, there is a massive upside. However, in the short run, it is a 0 out of 10. You're not going to make any money, and in fact, you will need to spend money every month to fund it or get investors and go down the traditional VC path, which basically means you have a glorified job. Next, in terms of ease of operation, I'm going to say this is a 2 out of 10 because you have to manage a development team. You have to constantly be monitoring competitors and considering new features and updates. And not to mention, you have to make sure that everything is working smoothly, because if people who are depending on you are using your software and it goes down, case in point, if Instagram goes down and you have to use it to run your business, well, you're basically fucked, and fucked customers are not happy customers. And then finally, in terms of cost to start, it is once again a 2, if not worse than that. It's an expensive thing to start. And yes, there's things like no-code SaaS, but the reality is that's not actually a real business. That is some type of pseudo fucking software that I've never heard of anybody, feel free to prove me wrong, that has built a successful SaaS company with this type of model. It's either building something that people use or not. Final summary, I'm going to put SaaS at a D class, specifically speaking for new business owners. I have a SaaS company. It is an amazing business if you're willing to run the marathon and fund it and basically go into years of struggle and stress. However, if you're new to business and more specifically, you are looking to make income for yourself, I would not suggest doing this one. Next up, let's talk about another popular money-making strategy, trading. Now, technically, this is not a business, but it is a really popular way to make money. We can probably thank Wall Street Bets for that, so it's worth noting. Now, in my opinion, I think this is actually a truth and not an opinion for the record. Trading is literally equal to gambling. You can make a shit ton of money in a short amount of time, but you can also lose a shit ton of money in a short amount of time. Now, there are a lot of people out there teaching specific trading practices like options trading and crypto and Forex, but even if you are a gun at trading, at the the end of the day, you are still essentially gambling. And directly speaking, I actually have a close friend who teaches option trading and has been doing so for years, and they have thousands of students. And even then, when they have this very systemized process, only about 13% of their students have a success rate. So personally, if you want to mess around on the side with a couple $1,000s, knowing you might lose it all, I say go for it. But I personally would not bet my livelihood on this. So in terms of profitability, I'm going to give this a 5 because yes, there's a reality to make a lot of money, but also you most likely will lose it at some point too. Now, in terms of ease of operation, I'm going to actually give this one a 4 because the reality is actually once you learn a systemized process, it is pretty easy to follow and just stick to. However, on the flip side, it is entirely dependent on factors you do not control. Also, not to mention, it is entirely dependent on you actually waking up, sitting on your laptop, and doing the actual practice. If you don't do that, nothing's going to happen, which is very different to other businesses where you can actually build a system and make money while you're actually sleeping or not working. So personally for me, I am also going to rate this one at a D. Reason being is that it's risky, it is not dependable, it also requires you to show up and do the work, and I would much rather have a business that is systemized and runs itself. Now, next on the list is e-com. We all love buying stuff on the internet, but the question is this a good business to start as a beginner? Now, I will say this, I have zero experience with e-com. I've worked in a fairly successful e-com business, I will say, but it was actually on the video side. So when it comes to the operations, I have no experience at all. However, I have, once again, a friend, and I've actually had some insights on how this business model works. There's a handful of different ways to do this, but mainly there is 2 ways. Now, ecom is a great business to start if you are really into like logistics and numbers and you love the idea of data and running and scaling ads and managing profit margin. So if that gets you excited, then I think this is definitely a viable business to start, but it's important to know that this is the game if you're getting into it. And like I said, there are generally 2 ways to do ecom. You can, 1, create your own product, which actually requires you to actually have some upfront investment and research and basically going through the process of creating a product and a brand, which if you're into, I think that is a really cool idea. However, that is a long game, not a short game for the record. Or you can go the drop shipping or the white labeling route, which basically what this looks like is you go find a product on a website like Alibaba, which is like a Chinese Amazon. You buy a shit ton of that product at a cheap price, and then you set up a Shopify store and you try and sell that product at a higher price here in the United States or in some type of Western country. The second method that I've seen to work fairly well is that you have to pick a winning product. Then what you need to do is you need to learn how to get traffic to that product. Nowadays, the main way people are doing this is with like UGC content with influencers on TikTok, or they're running conversion ads on YouTube or Meta. So it's really a game of getting the right product, getting in front of the right audience on social media, making the right content for that audience, and then once you know you're spending, say, $100 to make $200 with ads or paying influencers, you can then scale to thousands and tens of thousands and so on. So from my perspective, e-com is a game of logistics, and if you're that type of person, I definitely think this is something that you can learn fairly quickly if you're doing it the dropshipping way. However, it's a very different model if you're wanting to build a brand like Lululemon, and that takes a lot of upfront investment, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and that certainly is a viable path. But once again, I do not think that is a way to make income upfront if that's your goal. So with that all said, let's rank it. I think the profitability of e-com is a 6 out of 10. Reason being is that it is fairly reliable once you get those profit margins. However, they are very low. The reality of doing e-com is that the profit margins are low, so you need a lot of volume to actually make it viable, to actually pay yourself what you want month to month. In terms of ease of operation, I'm going to give this one a 6. If you're a creative person and you don't like spreadsheets or managing ad campaigns, then I probably think this is not the business for you. But if you are a very logical and structured person, this one could actually be for you too. And then finally, the cost to start. Now, I'm going to rank this one at a 5. If you go the drop shipping route, you don't need too much to invest in product up front. In fact, you actually can like slowly scale that. However, if you're looking to build a brand, like I said, like Lululemon, a clothing brand, a product brand, then you're going to need to actually invest in a lot of upfront costs to actually build the product, research it, get it tested, and all that good stuff. So with that all said, we're going to put e-com at a solid C. There's a lot of logistical things that you have to get into. The profit margins are low, but if you're willing to play that game, then it's definitely a viable option. Now, business number 4, which is similar to this, is Amazon FBA. Now, once again, I have no experience with this business. However, I will say this. My mom has been doing Amazon FBA for about 3 years now, and I unfortunately get to hear all about it. So with that said, this is very similar to e-com, like I mentioned. And the magic ingredient in making this successful is finding the right product, being a logistical-oriented person. Is that a word, logistical? A logistics-oriented person. And if you find a winning product, you invest a little bit of money in testing that product, and you pay $40 a month to set up your Amazon store, you can actually make money with it for sure. The downside, and I hear about this a lot, is that you're essentially depending on another company for your success. If anything goes wrong at Amazon, or if they change their rules, then your store can literally be shut down, or even if something changes in their algorithm for how you show up in their search results, then your product can get banned. buried. And specifically speaking, my mom has set up stores and they've actually shut her stores down and held a six-figure amount of money for nearly a year in their department before she can even get paid out. No explanation, and yeah, so that was pretty shit. So from my experience about hearing about this, I would honestly stay away from this business, specifically because I don't want to depend on a massive corporation. However, that doesn't mean there are not people out there who are successful with Amazon FBA. In terms of profitability, ease of operation, and the cost to start, it's very similar to setting up a e-com store on Shopify. However, I'm going to rank this one overall at a C, specifically because I wouldn't want to depend on Amazon. And if I was personally doing e-com, I would set up a Shopify store or go down the path of starting my own brand personally. Next up on the list, we have a trendy one, SMMA, which stands for Social Media Marketing Agency. With that said, though, technically you can start an agency in pretty much any industry, not just marketing. And in fact, going back to the Amazon FBA example, there are agencies that you can pay to set up and manage your Amazon store. I know, crazy. If there's a service that you can provide in an industry, chances are there's an opportunity to create an agency around that service. And in fact, this was actually the first business model that I started when I got out of school. I taught myself video editing and I was super into photography, and I started being a freelancer. And over a few years, I actually learned how to systemize that process, and I turned my freelancing practice into a content agency. And from that experience, I will say this. In the beginning, starting an agency is actually, from my opinion, one of the best businesses to start. If you have a specialized skill like video editing or graphic design, or if you know how to run Facebook ads, you can start getting clients and getting paid right away. Not to mention, you don't need to invest any money, you don't need to set anything up, and you can find your clients literally just by going on social media. However, it's important to understand the difference between freelancing and an agency model. Technically speaking, freelancing is when you do the work yourself. And I actually think this is a great side hustle or even just a main source of income. However, an agency is when you set up a system and hire a team of specialists to do the work, and then your job is to manage that system and focus on getting clients. So in other words, running an agency is less about doing that actual skill or specialized service that you provide and more about running a team and doing sales. And I share that because I think a lot of people, and myself included, don't know that when they get into starting, let's say, a video agency, for example, because they love video editing, but it actually is more about managing people and selling clients in your service. And directly speaking, I'm actually really grateful that I learned these skills because they are 100% necessary if you want to run a business. So with that said, let's chat pros and cons. Pros of an agency: it requires little to no money up front. Depending on the service that you provide, you can actually charge thousands of dollars, and you have a source of monthly recurring revenue if you set up this service as a subscription-based model, which I definitely suggest you should. And lastly, the one thing that is great about agencies is that if you set them up the right way, you can actually pay yourself and the team as the business grows. And that's actually really important because in other businesses where you have to pay a team member month on month, regardless of how much money you make, with an agency, you can actually set it up in a way that everything scales at the same time. So let's say you have a video editing agency like I had, and you make $3,000 per client. You would pay yourself $1,000, and then you would pay your video editor $500 to actually do the editing work. You would keep $1,500 in the business for taxes and for editing softwares and things like that. And now you know for every client that you get, you make $1,000. So for example, if you have 10 clients, you'd be making $10,000. Then let's say you scale to 20 clients, you'd be making $20,000 per month. And the same thing would apply to your team members. So as you make more money and as you're bringing on more clients, your team members make more money and everything moves at the same time. And not to mention, as things grow, you can actually bring on other people to do other aspects of the business, and you can literally technically step back from the actual work itself. Now, on paper, that actually sounds pretty amazing. However, there is a downside to an agency, and I learned this from personal experience, and that is you are basically a fractional employee in somebody else's business. And with that said, it comes with a lot of expectations, and one of the biggest headaches of running an agency is that you have to keep clients happy. And this is especially true if you're doing some type of creative agency where you're doing subjective work like logo design or video editing, and they're constantly coming back with edits or feedback, and it's a pain in the ass. And that brings me to the point of the next business we'll talk about, and that is this point, which is it is way easier to have students than it is to have clients. And the relationship and the psychology is very different, and the expectations and the dynamic is very different, which we'll get into. Profitability. We're going to give this one an 8 out of 10. It's extremely predictable and it's very scalable. More importantly, compared to selling physical products, you can charge a much higher price, which means you only need to handle a handful of clients to have a full-time income. Ease of operation. This is where things can get a little tricky depending on the types of agencies that you have, but I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10 purely because managing client expectations and running a team can bring with it a lot of stress and management skills. And then finally, in terms of cost to start, I'm actually going to give this one a 10 out of 10 because literally you can start an agency with zero money as long as you have the skills you need to actually do it. So my final score, I'm going to put agencies at a B tier. It's a great option, but I do think there is a better one, which leads me to coaching and consulting. As I mentioned before, there is a big difference between having clients and having students. And also something very interesting to note about coaching and building an online education business is there's a reason why all of the leaders and the top content creators that you know move into building a course or a coaching business. Even the ones who are already making money with Airbnb or day trading or running an agency or copywriting or whatever business model it is. And it's because it is one, the most profitable business model. It is super scalable and predictable. And if you actually know what you're doing and you build a good program that actually helps people, it is super fulfilling. And the great thing is, if you are new to business, it is very similar to an agency in the sense that it requires no money to start. If there's a skill that you can teach or there's a transformation that you can guide people through, you can start accepting coaching clients or students immediately. But the question is, how does this business model work? Well, first off, you have to actually have a hard skill that you can actually teach people, or you have to know how to solve a problem that you can help people with. In the online education space, this is called the offer. Now, the bigger the problem you solve, the more you can charge for the offer. For example, if you teach somebody how to play the guitar, which is a hobby, you can charge let's say a few $100s. But if you can teach people a specific business model that allows them to earn a living, you can charge thousands of dollars. And you can certainly be successful with both of those, but naturally you're going to need more students to make a legitimate living with a low ticket offer versus a high ticket offer. Now let's talk about two examples of this. There is Paul Davies, who has a massive YouTube channel, and he sells a course that teaches acoustic guitar. Now this course is a couple $100s. I bought it. I teach myself how to play guitar very poorly, but he has a massive audience and he's able to generate a lot of sales from that audience. On the flip side, if you're somebody who has a couple hundred Instagram followers, you're not quite a content creator yet, well, then doing a low ticket offer is probably not going to be worth it for you in the short term unless you're super passionate about that topic and you're willing to grow, build an audience, and continue to sell that product. However, if you have a high income skill like copywriting, or you've been making money flipping houses and you can show somebody the exact step-by-step process to do so, or let's say that you can help somebody solve a really problematic health condition, or you can help somebody, get ready for a bodybuilding show, which is apparently really important to people in that world, you can charge upwards of thousands of dollars. In fact, there are high ticket offers that I've seen that are $12,000, $20,000, and people will happily pay it because they want to get the results and have somebody who knows what they're doing guide them through that process. Now, I think it is important to note this. This is the most important thing to focus on because there is a lot of bullshit on the internet of people selling courses and programs who either one, have no experience in that topic, or two, are just straight up full of shit. And honestly, I think that's why online courses and people who sell them get a bad rap from the general population, because a lot of people get burnt buying a bad online course or hiring some self-proclaimed marketing expert on Instagram and get nothing out of it. So there is a prerequisite to this business. You need to actually get people results. And I honestly think that goes across the board with all businesses. If you sell a product or a service, you should believe in that product or that service. And the same thing is true for coaching and consulting. Now, one thing to note about this business model, there are a few different ways that you can go about it. One, you can actually do what is called one-on-one coaching, which is exactly what it sounds like. You work directly one-on-one with somebody and coach them through a process. Now, that could be like, for example, an online personal trainer. It could be a business consultant. It could be teaching somebody how to invest in Airbnb properties. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. Number two, you can build a course, which basically is where you package all of the information somebody needs to get a specific result, and then they go through that on their own. And then finally is the third model, which is called group coaching or building a paid community. And this is where somebody joins a community of people that are learning together. And this is basically a hybrid approach where you build a course or a curriculum. That's a hard word to say, curriculum, where basically people go through that curriculum together. And then you have a section where the students can interact with each other. They can ask you questions and go through the program at the same time. Now, in my experience, if you're just getting started with this model, the best place to start is to actually go find a client and do it for free. Prove that you can actually help somebody and guide them through that process. Once you do that, then you can start charging for your expertise. And I would personally suggest building a paid community model. Now, directly speaking, I'm obviously biased when I say that because I have a software company that allows creators to build a paid community. And that is the model that I have. We actually teach creators how to build a strong offer, how to market their offer on social media, and how to implement a really simple sales system to turn followers into paying clients. But there is a reason why all of the other creators that you know who are talking about drop shipping or Airbnb or day trading or any other business model are all selling some type of course or online program. And that is because it is the best business model. So let's talk about ranking. I'm going to put one-on-one coaching at a A tier. And the reason it's actually not an S is because you will actually hit a ceiling with one-on-one coaching as you actually scale, because you can only work directly with so many people. However, for paid communities and online courses, I'm going to put this one at the S tier. And the reason being is because it's the model that everybody moves to. Okay, well, I think that sums it up for this one. Those are some businesses to consider if you're starting a business in 2025. Can you make money in all of them? 100%. Is this video biased? Most definitely. However, I hope you found some value from it. And if you have any questions and you think my perspective is wrong, well, leave a comment. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.